Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in once again this week's edition of the Duval Dive Live. A little bit of a heartbreaker today, unfortunately, for the Duval Devout, 30-27. The Green Bay Packers come away with the win, but somehow, even though it's only a 3-point deficit, it still feels like this game was closer in a lot of weird ways. And really, listen, in a week of wacky action in the NFL, friends, this was among the wackier in and of itself. But listen, because it's that wacky, I'm going to need a little help to break all this down. Had somebody there at Everbank Stadium. You may know him as my personal champion, Big Cat Country's own Travis D. Holmes. What's going on, my man?
Wish I could say I was doing good, but no, man, I am not. The team lost, but at the same time, they also won a moral victory, and this is weird because you know how I feel about those. But yeah, it was still a closer matchup than I thought it was going to be, while also being that much more heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, and listen, let's be clear. I want to let the world show that you were incredibly skeptical of my 24-point prediction for this team
Right.
in a loss. They got 27, so we got that going for us. Also, doing it in a fashion, listen, I don't want to bring up the negative first. I usually start with a positive, but to talk about the biggest positive for this team today, Travis, you have to lead with the fact that Parker Washington, Brenton Strange, Tim Jones are all guys that took the field today. Tim Jones and Parker Washington at one point were the only two active, healthy wide receivers on the dang roster. And still, they tied it up at 27 apiece, threatening to give the Duval Devout an extra period of free football. Obviously, it fell short. But Travis, you got
Oh man,
there, dude.
that's the biggest part of this is the fact that they played some of their best football when you had probably the lowest expectations of them, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. When you go to a point where you're down your top three receivers, you're down six. Well, at one point, six players overall. You end up getting one of the players back, on the field at one point. But that's kind of crazy. The fact that they were then able to be that efficient, that effective on offense, getting a field goal drive, getting a touchdown drive, and actually making it a legitimate game. Hey, man, that's a great job. And then the unfortunate ending where the defense kind of just snatches victory away from the hands of defeat. But yeah.
For me, that's the biggest downside too. You put Jordan Love on the ropes early, just as much as the offense came out slow. So too did Jordan Love. Your guy Jarian Jones got his first interception of his career as a Jacksonville Jaguar. I know you're excited about that, and anybody who's a member of the Duval Devout should be. Somewhere in a corner, Mike Patton's waiting for your response on Twitter about him. Shouts to the general, by the way. I know the Titans had a rough one. What was it that the Lions had? 2 on them at one. Anyways, let's get back on topic, though. I feel like the defense certainly had a good first half. And Jordan Love, unfortunately, having to leave the game early. Listen, I was having enough fun seeing the Jags have a good time on defense just as an analyst. To see any young quarterback go out the game early is unfortunate. But for me,
Right.
from a football standpoint, I think the part you're going to be most critical of, I'm guessing, is Music City Malik Willis able to put 3 scores on this Jacksonville Jaguars defense to make the difference.
I would love to be super extra critical about it, but unfortunately, this is the same Malik Willis that we've seen, the genius that we call a Green Bay Packers head coach, Matt LaFleur, win multiple games with. Right, we've seen this man coach this Green Bay Packers team to multiple victories with Malik Willis at quarterback. So I think it's to a point where we have to give that man his credit. We kind of have to give Matt LaFleur his credit and say he is doing a hell of a job coaching that team where they can score 25 to 30 points in a game, even with Malik Willis at quarterback. So then I can't then downgrade to say, well, it was Malik Willis, so that makes that means you should have done so much better. Like, hey, I don't know how to feel about that. But at the end of the day, your defense cannot struggle this badly with these rushing quarterbacks. It's been something that's been consistent no matter what quarterback we're playing against. We even gave up a 20-yard run to Joe Flacco earlier this season. This has obviously become an issue for this Jacksonville Jaguars offense, unfortunately. Jacksonville Jaguars defense, unfortunately, and it just it reared its head again today. They kept drives going with the touchdown drive for Josh Jacobs on the 38-yard touchdown. That was because of a 20-yard run by Malik Willis earlier in that drive. This is a consistent issue that we have to figure out how to get resolved, how to play more disciplined defense up front as far as the defensive line and the linebackers, man.
Yeah, well, and that's all it could take. How about we meet in the middle when it comes to Malik Willis and just say the Titans suck, and that's what happened. How about?
Well, yes, the Titans do suck, and we all know that that's what happened. But then all of a sudden, the player doesn't suck as much when he goes to a team that has a good coach.
I think that's what
So
we're making here, absolutely.
yeah, so shout out to Green Bay. I mean, again, good victory for them. Um, and I almost want to say shout out to Doug and the coaching staff because it was a good loss. If such a thing exists, it wasn't the locker room quit on you. But at the end of the day, you know what this is, man. It's a results based business, and a loss is a loss is a loss. And the games don't get any easier with Philadelphia right on deck, saying
Well,
let's.
I'll come back with this, and your points are all valid. I'm not going to be correcting you anywhere, but it's a little hard for me to put this one on Doug, Travis, especially when what is it? 3 turnovers, one of them on your own 5-yard line. Listen, Doug
Yep,
Peterson doesn't fumble the damn football. And say,
yep,
listen, this is not me saying that Trevor Lawrence is a bad quarterback at all. After all, I was brave enough to say 24 points leading into it back on Wednesday on the Duval dive. Okay, but and being able to lead the tying drive with
yeah,
Brenton Strange and Evan Ingram carrying the
yeah.
field, carrying the load along with Parker Washington and just all of that is impressive. However,
hmm
uh, the fumbling,
However,
the third down conversions, what are they? One
what
for nine.
what do we say? At one point in the game, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, the difference in the yardage was, I believe, it was 24 yards at middle of the second quarter, 24 total yards. The Jacksonville Jaguars offense, they had no first downs, and Green Bay had like 180 yards. Like it was something ridiculous, and I'm just like, what in the world? And then the Jaguars started going up tempo, hurry up offense,
And
and they did that for much of the rest of the game.
they also held on to the football, Travis. Let's be clear about that. Yeah,
Well, no, no, that's fair.
the guy best at holding on to the football today, Tank Bigsby. Anyway,
That's a whole other thing. But so we had our keys to the game, and one of my biggest keys to the game was winning the time of possession. You
right.
obviously didn't do that at when the game mattered. Let me rephrase. So they did a lot of their damage later in the game, hurry up offense, but didn't do that. Winning the turnover battle, you had an opportunity there. Like, and then I'm not even sure what the final stats came out to because at one point it felt like both teams were playing hot potato, trying their best not to hold onto the ball. It was an interception, then followed up by another interception by the other team, the following drive, and then we have the fumble. So my guess is that Jacksonville probably lost the turnover battle even there. But it wasn't by Green Bay's lack of trying. They definitely gave us our opportunities.
Yeah,
Uh,
the official turnover was, of course, Jarian Jones with his interception. That was
yeah,
Green Bay's single turnover. The Jags credited with 2. They did have a third fumble. It wasn't lost, but it was on a crucial third down, so it might as well. It turned
right.
into a punt, just as good as a turnover. It's just not as bad a field position for the Jaguars. No, your point's well maintained.
I mean, you're playing against the Green Bay Packers who lead the league in turnovers. Whether they recover the fumble or don't recover the fumble, they're forcing fumbles because this is what they do.
Yeah.
And the only other time we've seen this, the Jacksonville Jaguars have seen that this season was against the Chicago Bears, and there were also 3 turnovers in that game. Or I'm sorry, 1 fumble, 1 interception, and another fumble force. Literally the exact same situation as this game. So this is obviously an ongoing issue.
Well, and I hear your laments over the defense being unable to stop mobile quarterbacks. Stopping the run in general was an issue. There's at least,
Yeah,
I'll call it 3 big run plays that took
yeah.
place. Obviously, that's something you got to hate on. But here's the part I can't get past is the defense for the Jags stopped the Packers 8 times on third down. They went 3 for 11.
Hmm.
Here's the other problem, though. The Packers stopped the Jags on offense 8 times, going 1 for 9 on third down. And in fairness, the Jags did have a fourth down conversion. So that's only 7 times they had to put it away, But for my money, Travis, And actually, well, I'm not even sure it was 7 punts. Some of the turnovers may have been on third down. I didn't verify that. Is
No.
you have to, man, the money down. If we're going to sit here and back and rank Trevor, he's got to give us a little bit of ammunition and do the damn job on third
Well,
down. Right?
I mean, but again, that's fair. But to your earlier point, you say you don't blame Doug for the loss. I'm not blaming Doug for the loss.
Oh, I don't mean
I
to
blame Doug.
yeah.
No. But I want to be clear about saying what I'm saying. I want to make sure I'm being very clear in what I mean. Is the result always lands on the coach, especially when you get to the end, when you get to the middle of the season and your record shows what it shows, and you have 2 victories and they're both over pretty bad teams, or at least one team that was in a very bad situation at the time in the Indianapolis Colts.
Right.
The result is the result, because at the end of the day, a bad team can play a good team well. That happens all the time in today's NFL. However, being consistent and playing good football is something that is done by good teams. Bad teams are the teams that consistently make mistakes over and over and over and find ways to lose games or snatch defeat from the hands of victory. That is what I place on Doug. I place on Doug the scheme, the system, the overall team, the overall result, if that makes any sense.
Kind of. So, and I'll say this: when I say I don't blame Doug, I mean for today's result, right? For the season, listen, I think earlier in the year, Doug was letting some stuff happen that shouldn't, right? For one, apparently, rotation of the interior is an issue. Okay. He could have told Ryan Nielsen to stop doing that some time ago. I definitely put that on Doug Peterson, for example. But listen, when you're looking at a chess match between your own Matt LaFleur and Super Bowl champion Doug Peterson, and you see the game decided by 3 points, where the Jags, I felt like the Jags made more mistakes. You're right. But again, at some point, the guys got to execute, don't they? I mean, I don't know.
Well, what you say, at some point the guys got to execute, but if guys consistently don't execute, then what is that? Is that guys or is that coaching? It's a chicken and egg conversation. And we've been and in Duval County, we've lived there. We've lived having that chicken and egg conversation, because we're having the conversation between, is it Doug, is it Trent, is it Trent, is it Doug? And at the end of the day, I'm saying throw out the whole damn kitchen. Like, I don't care if it's the chef or if it's the person delivering the food. They all need to go. Like, that's where I'm at. So if that makes any sense.
You're saying there's too much negative momentum for the Jags at this point?
We can go with that. We can go with that. But at the end of all of this, man, it is what it is. Like, again, it's a great moral victory, and it makes you feel good that this team isn't as bad as what they are. Which that, again, does happen to a lot of teams. Hell, even when you have the Kansas City Chiefs, when they ended up drafting Mahomes, that they were a pretty bad team before that, because they were an injury riddled team, which the Jaguars now are, oddly, after this game, with 5 people who didn't return to the game, 5 starters who didn't return to the game, the Jaguars. But nevertheless, they're a team with positive vibes, we'll say. A team who feels like they should be better than they are, and if you get a right coach and you get the right GM, maybe you can add some pieces and put this team over that level to where they need to be. You're just missing 1 or 2 things, or 1 or 2 schemes even. I don't know.
Well, and let's get into some of those. Obviously, earlier on, Jordan Love got hurt. We know that. But some of the Jaguars' injuries include multiple receivers, right? Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, all injured. Ezra Cleveland got hurt at guard. I think that was an impact, especially later in the football game, right?
That was.
Brandon
Scherf left basically for a quarter. Came back after halftime. I don't know if they taped him up. I don't know if they gave him a shot, whatever it was, or just evaluating him. But nevertheless, he did come back.
And by the way, we'd be remiss to not remind the public at large out there that going into this game, Travis Etienne already missing. So, and then towards the end of the game.
Brandon Scherf. Brandon Scherf, you already said, and Ezra Cleveland and Ronald Darby, cornerback Ronald Darby also
was missing. Yeah. By the way, to round out the DBs at the end, Andre Cisco, after the big play that set up the winning field goal for the Packers, Andre Cisco hurt. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he left the game with a hip injury on the play that actually set up the game winning drive. Like he got hurt and fell in coverage, hurting his hip. And no, we have no idea what that looks like. We'll have to find out earlier in the week when we speak to Doug, getting any medical updates. But nevertheless, that's another guy in the secondary to match all the guys on the receiver room, like just receiver room, secondary, the walking wounded at this current moment in time. And you don't have time to feel bad for them because you have, again, the Philadelphia Eagles right on deck who will be very willing and very able to take that victory from the Jaguars. If you're going to hand it to them, hey, we're all hurt. That's great. Thank you for the victory. We appreciate this. Like
Lord knows
that's
they need it.
unfortunately where we are.
Yeah, they need
Yeah,
it
man.
in a very competitive NFC East right now. Believe
So
that.
so this that so this Jaguars, unfortunately, this Jaguars team, they just keep finding ways to not rise to the level that is needed, that is mandated of them to take to take these victories when it's kind of given to them. Because again, the Packers, for everything that can be said, had an injured quarterback early in the game. We're talking the second series of the game. Jordan Love was hurt and stayed in the game to try to kind of limp his way through because he was in the medical tent after the second series, trying to get trying to get himself looked at. I believe it was his ankle, and came back in. He was always limping, even on the long touchdown, not the touchdown, the long like 60-yard catch from Tyler Kraft. He had an opportunity to run and chose not to run because he was still limping and struggling. So you kind of knew it was impacting the game then. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Green Bay, I have a tight end who has 15 yards of space all around him, wide the heck open. We should be fine to just throw this. I don't have to run it. And that's the saddest part of all of this. Again, when I think when the dice roll in the Jaguars' favor, you have to be able to jump at that opportunity. And unfortunately, today the Jacksonville Jaguars defense wasn't, and in the first half, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense wasn't.
Yeah, no, I think all those are fine takes by you with this thing in particular as well. I Here's the thing, and I think it's the toughest part. The early mistakes. This is the part that maybe you put on Doug. I don't know, but with Travis, Trevor Lawrence's interception. Yeah, sure. He had some pressure, not as much as we've seen him be under, in the past. Certainly he was under less pressure than the play where he eventually fumbled on the 5 to get, Green Bay to further the distance, right?
Right. Yeah.
But for me, I felt like that interception, and I do address it in the good, the bad, and the spotty, which will be up here soon on the Fans First Sports Network. But
yep.
BTJ wasn't looking at the ball. Christian Kirk seemed to be way close to the area. What do you think happened on the interception there for Trevor?
So I had this conversation with a few members of the media during the game because we actually pulled up some of the previous plays, the play against Buffalo that resulted in an interception, and the play that we saw, I believe it was last week. Was it last week? Because it wasn't last week, it was a week before, but it was something like it recently happened where the play worked successfully. Christian Kirk caught the ball, and I believe it was last week, actually, against the Patriots. And that was the exact same play. The only difference is early in the season against Buffalo when it occurred, it was Devin Duvernay running the route from BTJ's perspective. So what happened was BTJ got held up at the line of scrimmage. So it slowed him down and messed up the timing. Very similar to how it happened against Buffalo. Same situation where he gets held up, so that all of a sudden their timing's off. He's passing at a time that he should have already pulled the safety away. Safety baits the quarterback looking like he's running with BTJ, but in reality, he's actually about to crash down on Christian Kirk. And Christian Kirk, unfortunately, did not get a hand out on the ball, did not stack the defender and get his hand in front of it. So it just kind of just left the ball out for Trevor. Like, it wasn't a bad play by Trevor, but nobody helped him. Nobody saved him from that, if that makes any sense. Like, he's throwing it with anticipation for Christian Kirk to get in front of the defender. He doesn't. He's throwing it with anticipation, hoping that Christian Kirk is able to get his hands out and just catch the ball. He doesn't. And then the ball, like, even if the defender is still 3 or 4 yards behind Christian Kirk, he still intercepts that ball because Kirk never even gets his hands out to even knock the ball down or catch it or anything like that, because of the timing being off between he and BTJ, who got held up at the line. So it was just a real bad timing situation that happens to bad teams. That's really what it get down. Like, it's not like, say the thing can't happen to good teams, sure, but it happens too frequently to the Jaguars because and that frequency is an indicator that something's obviously not going right with the scheme, with the communication, with the coaching, with the timing.
So let me ask this question. Overall, the Jacksonville Jaguars would have beat the Packers if.
Oh, like what could they have done if they just protect the ball? That's just we can start. We can start and end there. Like that was again our pregame conversations was if you win the time of possession, you win the turnover battle, you win the game. Because the only way in my head that I said you were going to win the game is if you allow Green Bay to give you those turnovers and you just accept them with open arms and you never give it back to them. Because that was one of the few things that they walked into the game being pretty bad at. Is Jordan Love puts the ball in danger. And Jordan Love didn't play a good portion of the game, and we still ended up getting those opportunities, and we simply gave the ball right back to them.
That's a fascinating point you make. You go from a gunslinging Jordan Love to a game managing Music City Malik Willis there, who's protecting the ball as a game manager, taking that risk off the table. By the way, you mentioned the time of possession and all that, buddy. If they don't turn the ball over twice themselves, they may have still lost the time of possession because they got to turn over themselves, and that kind of makes the numbers a little frisky,
I mean, that's fair. And the Jaguars again still struggled to stop the run. Still struggled to stop. I mean, on the touchdown drive, that the final touchdown drive that Malik Willis ran or led, it was an 80-yard drive.
Yep.
All 80 yards came on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to pass the ball to beat you. You can't win. Like, unless you're forcing major fumbles, which the Jaguars just are not known to do. So you can't win if you can't get turnovers and you give them 80 yards on the ground on the touchdown drive where all they got was 80 yards. I don't know what you do then. Like, Ryan Nielsen, sorry, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Like, just if you get dominated up front, then what can you do?
What's left after that? No, I get you, too. And there's something to be said for that. At this point, it's not that the draft is tomorrow, but at this point, you feel like some sort of beef in the middle, some sort of a defensive tackle option has to be considered in the first 3 picks.
Which is crazy though, because the fact of the matter is they drafted multiple defensive linemen this year. One of them was inactive today, in Nason Smith. Another was inactive today he wasn't drafted, but Big E. It says Big E, word last name, Otomeo, Eltomewu, maybe. I'm probably saying it wrong, but yes.
Otomeo is correct, but go ahead.
And the fact of the matter is, some of these guys have been inactive. Mason Smith has been inactive multiple weeks. I know he had the injury in practice on Friday, so that could have been it. We still have to get confirmation from Doug to verify whether or not that was a healthy scratch or was it actually something to do with his ankle, because it becomes a little cloudy these days when you don't really know if your second round draft pick is actually playing because of an injury or just because fill in the blank beef that you might have with whoever, man. It's a little weird. So it's the fact that you're even bringing up the fact that we likely need a defensive tackle to help us stop the run is mad problematic from a personnel and a roster building stance. But that is where we are. I mean, at the end of the day. I mean, this is the Jacksonville Jaguars team that struggled to stop the run against Cleveland, and they struggled to stop the run when they had to today, when you knew that that's what the Packers were going to do. You knew they were going to run the ball, and they knew you knew they were going to run the ball, and you couldn't stop them from running the ball still. Well, you got Debo. I don't know what else to say there.
No, man, I'm with you on that, and like I feel like the secondary obviously could have had some plays they wish they had back. Obviously, I think overall they did pretty well considering. I feel like
the cornerback. I feel like the corners did very well. I mean, honestly, like you had a few plays where 2 plays where defensive backs fell on the ground and both were safeties. Darnell Savage fell on one play and Cisco fell on the other one. That the game changing.
The one he got hurt.
The one he got hurt. And outside of that, I felt like they actually had reasonably fine games overall, like the Jaguars secondary, and the other team still put up 30 points.
Interesting, right? Listen, that's what happens when you give up good field position, though. You know this. That's what.
Yeah, man.
So
Yeah, you have a turnover on your own 5 yard line.
how
I
about
mean,
this? How
that's
about
a
this?
good start.
You just blew my mind a little bit. A team was 3-11 on third down, and they put up 30 damn points. It's crazy to me. That's big
Well,
play,
yeah, but
favorable field
that's
position.
big plays, bad field position, and those turnovers, and
Yeah,
that's the game. But again, that's the Jacksonville Jaguars who do things like mess up in red zone. Like, and I say mess up in red zone because Jaguars actually did well in red zone today, but it really had me all kinds of pissed off when we get the what was it the illegal formation penalty
yeah,
in the red zone. And I'm like, as soon as we get to the 3 yard line, this is when you guys had a clean game all day, and this is when you want to have the penalty. And that's just one of those things that just irk me. Like I keep saying, you wait to screw up until we're in a key moment. That is what I'm talking about. That is the thing that drives me nuts. And then you have all the injuries. You have, the issue obviously with three different Jaguar receivers who are now, you know, with injuries, and we'll figure out just how severe they may or may not be walking into the next game because the Jaguars, who people were pretty religiously talking about potentially being, a seller at this trade deadline in the next 2 weeks, now might not even they might be buyers at this point just to have someone on the roster potentially.
yeah.
That's another fascinating piece of this. We're seeing as you had your only two receivers active that were remaining and able to play on the field, and you were still having to run two tight end sets because you don't have any other pass catching options.
Mhm.
Christian Kirk, if he is injured, is not someone you can trade because he's injured.
Right.
That's out of the window. Boy, and Cam Robinson getting effectively benched while after clearing the concussion protocol, effectively benched for Walker Little, and no one's complaining about how Walker Little played today.
Bro,
FYI,
hey, we've had
it's saying something.
this conversation about Walker Little and Cam Robinson, and I know our good friend T. Biggs of Locked On Jaguars, shouts to him by the way, told me I was nutty that those two were handcuffed together. But today,
Hmm.
this day, October 27th, I know the Duval devout are thankful for it.
Yep.
So, no, and no disrespect to Wiggs. I don't mean it like that because he made a good point at the time, and I agreed with him then. But today,
Yeah.
just by pure accident, boy, it sure seemed to avoid.
No,
Man,
I got you.
listen, excellent breakdown. Thanks for checking in the way you did under the conditions from Everbank Stadium. But in the meantime, tell the people where you can be found, my friend.
You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. You can find my writings on BigCatCountry.com. If you're listening to this within probably the next 10 minutes, I should have the game recap posted on the site. So definitely take a look at that. And if you're listening to this on the podcast and it's already posted, go and look at the site, man. Now I'll probably have my all 22 posted sometime Monday afternoon. The recap on everything that happened in the game, what we saw on rewatch. The snap breakdown, all of that, the rotation with the team, anything additional that I may be able to see from the TV copy that kind of missed live in the game. So definitely please check it out. What about you, sir?
First of all, if you can't find my silly behind between yesterday, the day before, today, and tomorrow, you just ain't looking hard enough. First of all, shouts to our Strugu Cove for the Nash baseball jersey there. That's for a Nashville minor league team. So it has Nash all over it. You want Nash all over it when it comes to your sports coverage. How's that for a damn promo? Anyways, yeah, I mentioned Friday. That was me covering the Orlando Magic for Fans First Sports Network. So make sure you check out my work there. I know they just got throttled last night in Memphis, but they're coming back to town to play the Pacers. I will be at the Kia Center. So make sure you check that out. Also, my work with the Black and Gold Banneret, the Night Shift Live podcast, evaluating the game against Brigham Young. Very interesting stuff going on there in that situation. Make sure you check that out. And of course, my edition of Night Class, also on the blackandgoldbanneret.com. I am about to put the finishing touches myself on the Jaguars piece. I have the good, the bad, and the spotty every week on Fans First Sport Network. So check that out. And like I said, Monday night, I'm going to be at Kia Center again. Be a fan first. Check me out, Fans First Sports Network. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Duval Dive. We're getting close to we're getting another milestone here soon at 200. Help us get there, y'all. Seriously. And then, of course, the podcast, as Travis mentioned. And speaking of milestones, the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel, Travis, almost at 1,000. So if you're out there, help make that happen. That's going to be a fun time. I'm busy, Travis. Damn it. Like So yeah, if you can't find me, you're not looking hard enough. The Twitter handle's there at the SOTG for Travis D. Holmes at Travis D. Holmes. If you can't get Travis D. Holmes right by now, there's only so many times I could say Travis D. Holmes before it gets old. Anyways, so until next time, everybody, class dismissed.